listening to the How to Health podcast. Turn up that stereo, plug in those earbuds, or pull up a chair. It's time to master your health journey. Here are your hosts, Dr. Heidi Cook and athletic trainer Tyler Smith. Let's ride.
Howdy ho.
Good morning. How are we?
Good. Long time no see.
This might be an abbreviated catch-up because we recorded our last episode 3 days ago. So
Your mic just dropped. Huh.
you're flying solo today.
Yeah, it's just me.
Okay, am I back on?
No.
Really?
Sounds like you're in a fishbowl.
How about now?
I can hear you.
And we're back on. Technical difficulties avoided.
You know, wouldn't be a pod episode without one.
Yeah. So we'll just cut a little bit of that out so you guys don't have to suffer through what we just went through.
How are we doing?
We're doing good. I mean, it's only been 3 days, so we have caught up. We were both super busy and caught up and recorded the last episode not too long ago. So
Yeah.
not
Hopefully
a lot to report in 3 days.
I was going to say, I'm really crossing my fingers that not too much can crash and burn in 3 days.
I mean, that's the hope, is that we kind of stabilize throughout the week.
Yes. I do have an update to share, even though there's not much to update on, but I have an update to share.
Let's hear it.
So I talked last week about my Oura Ring and sleep scores and all of those things. And I've been really, really struggling to sleep. And I think a lot of it just has to do with being uncomfortable. But like I toss and turn a lot. I get up to pee a lot. It is what it is at this point, and I've accepted that. But like some nights are significantly worse than others. And I was getting the best sleep of my life when we were on vacation. We had talked about how likely it was, stress, which I'm sure is a part of it. But, the other thing I was thinking about was when we were in California, we were outside a lot. I was getting a lot of sunshine. We were doing a lot of outdoor walking. Like it was just, I was getting a lot of outdoor time. And when I'm at home, I don't. Like I'm working. I have to make like a very concerted effort to get outside. And when it's cold and I'm not doing my like daily walk outside and like that's on the treadmill or whatever, then like I'm really not getting outdoor time.
Sure.
And I was watching, there was this reel that came up that was talking about not sleep training, but just like sleep tips for like those early stages for a newborn, kind of before they have the skills or the ability to, be sleep trained. And they were talking about really like the only thing that you can do, and one of the most important things you can do is help them differentiate between their days and their nights. And that essentially means just like helping them get a lot of sunshine during the day so that they sleep better at night. And I was like, what if I treated myself like a baby? And Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, I barely went outside at all. Like it was snowy. There was probably like 6 inches of snow on the ground. Sam shoveled the driveway for me. So like I was not outside at all. I had groceries delivered the day before. Like I literally didn't get outside. Like I don't think I got further than my garage on Sunday. I'm so serious. Like
the garage was the end point.
Yeah. Like I had no reason. I didn't have a reason to leave the house. It was Sunday. I had everything I needed. We did like a couple of house projects. I cleaned, and then it was Super Bowl. And we watched the Super Bowl from our house. So like I had no reason to leave. And Sunday night, I had like the worst night's sleep I have ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is ridiculous. Anyways, last 2 days, I have gotten like over 2.5 hours of sunshine. Like I've set up my laptop out on the back patio, and the sun is so warm here and like so intense that if the sun is shining and you can set yourself up in like a really sunny spot and the wind's not blowing too much, like I sat outside like just in like a sports bra, like no shirt in the sun, and I had like a blanket on my lap because that was shaded from the table, so it was cold, but like it was only 50 degrees outside, but it felt so much warmer. And I got, nearly 3 hours of sun each day. And my last 2 nights of sleep have been tremendous. I got one of the highest scores that I ever got, not last night, but the night before.
Nice. So it's getting
Sunshine.
outside, sunshine equates to better sleep. Case
Get
study.
outside, people. I preach about this and I talk about this, and Sam gets on my case about this. Because it is so easy for me, because I work from home, to just like be a little gremlin inside. You know what I mean? Like, especially in these colder months when it's not like particularly exciting to be outside. But anyways, so that's my big update is sunshine is probably having the biggest impact on my sleep, aside from stress.
Stress. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. There's a lot of research that talks about the benefit of sunshine, vitamin D, just getting outside, which, yeah, it's more difficult to do when it's not warm outside, but yeah.
But like while the sun is here, I was like, we're supposed to have like 3 very sunny days in a row, right around 50 degrees. I'm not going to freeze out there. Like I might as well take advantage of it. And I think it was just like one of those things of like, it's a little bit more effort than the norm, which is like sitting down here in my office on my computer and getting work done. And anyways, but I was just like, it's February, it's 50 degrees and sunny. Get your ass outside, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm trying to get more runs outside too, now that it's not super cold and snowy. So
yeah. And like, that's the other thing too, is, March is really like our snowiest month, usually like February and March. So I know, shitty weather is around the corner, 100%. It's not over. Well, the groundhog says that it's over.
Groundhog said we're done.
The groundhog said we're done, but I was kind of like, just because it's not over doesn't mean I can't take advantage of the days that are here,
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's great observation. Try to get yourself some better sleep.
Yeah. So anyways, shout out. This has already, I think that's the other thing too, is like we talked about data for data's sake is one thing, and just like collecting data and sitting on data and being like, oh, my sleep sucks. Like that would be such a unhelpful narrative to carry around, but like actually taking small action on the data that you're receiving to see how it makes improvements or not is like the whole purpose. And so that has been very helpful so far.
And sometimes I feel like I get stuck in that trap. Like I have data on my sleep and I'm trying really hard to get better sleep, and I don't know what little tidbits I need to be adjusting or changing to improve that.
Sunshine.
It yells at me a lot about REM sleep. I don't know how to increase REM sleep. If anyone does, that'd be great. Throw that my way. I get a lot of deep sleep, but not a lot of REM sleep.
That's so funny. I get a lot of REM sleep and not very much deep sleep.
Polar opposites.
8 science-backed tips to increase REM sleep.
Here we go.
How what's the word I'm looking for? Evidence-based this article is. All right. Just because they say science-backed tips.
Science, yeah.
Oh my gosh, so many of these things for you. Stick to a consistent sleep schedule, which I think you kind of pretty much do. Yeah. Keep the bedroom cool and dark.
I mean, usually, yes.
How cool is your room set to?
I mean, our house is I think during the winter set at 70. No, maybe it's 68.
I was going to say 70.
Yeah.
How are you not sweating? Well, at night, you should back that down.
I don't know how to, like, we have the oldest thermostat in the world, which I probably should replace. That's not super difficult. But the other problem is, and this is why they've created products for this, is my wife usually runs, like, if I do that, she'll get cold. She'll be like freezing, and I'll be like, this is so nice. She'll be like, I'm freezing my ass off over here.
So we just turn it down when we go to sleep, down to 65, I think, 64, 65. And it is cold. It feels cold, but then you get in bed and then you sleep great. So anyways, maybe back it down a degree and see if your REM sleep improves. Add aromatherapy to your bedtime routine. Are we diffusing any lavender?
We're not. We have lavender spray for my son, but I don't ever use it for me.
You should try, see what happens. Incorporate white noise. You do that.
Do that.
Brain FM, shout out. Get yourself some earplugs.
Okay. I mean, I can't hear out of one ear anyway. I don't know if I want to be totally deaf at night in case something goes wrong.
Magnesium.
Do that.
Cut back on caffeine.
Okay, but you're laughing.
Ongoing discussion.
But I'm really very frequently will I ever have caffeine past noon. Like I try to put noon as my cutoff point. Even if I really need some, there's a couple days where I'm like, yeah, I really could use a pick-me-up. But most days I won't. Like I won't drink it past like 12 or 1 o'clock at the latest. I'm serious.
But how many cups are we having between the time we wake up and 12 o'clock?
I'm usually down to 2 to 3. That's it.
Well, is it 2 to 3 of those?
Yeah.
Because that's like 5 or 6.
That's so not true. They can't be more than 16 ounces.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So I want to calculate. Okay, so 16 ounces. My eyes have been opened during this pregnancy because like I have to watch my caffeine intake. So like my doctor's recommendation is under 200 milligrams of caffeine. Okay. That is literally, for me, that's 3 shots of espresso. So that's 1 grande drink from Starbucks.
Okay.
Or 1 drink at home that I pour 2 shots. And then that leaves wiggle room for like a half calf later in the day, which I rarely ever do. Or like a Diet Coke or something like that has caffeine in it. So like, okay, let's talk about, have I talked about that on the podcast yet? My Diet Coke?
No, you haven't.
I could literally count on one hand how many Diet Cokes I've had in like the past 5 years. And then I got pregnant and all I want is Diet Coke. It's so bad. And so like I limit it pretty heavily because like I know it's not good.
Right.
But like, yeah, it is hardcore like what I want. For Valentine's Day, Sam got me a little 6-pack of mini Diet Cokes.
Oh yeah, I've seen those.
And I could not be happier. Okay, so that's my confession. I've been doing so good at like prioritizing things that make me feel good and getting a lot of nutrients, and then I'm chasing it all with a Diet Coke, which is just so funny because pre-pregnant Heidi could have given 2 shits about a Diet Coke. What was I looking up? My brain just...
I'm sure caffeine, because you were going to lecture me on my caffeine intake.
Yes. Okay. Are you just drinking black coffee?
I mean, I put creamer in it, but that's about it.
But it's just like drip coffee?
Yeah.
So caffeine consumption or caffeine levels in drip coffee vary pretty heavily, just like depending on how strong you brew it.
Yeah.
So let's just cut it in the middle. Right?
Middle's good.
To be fair. So what is that? 120? Yeah. 120 milligrams in 8 ounces. And you're drinking 3 16-ounce.
Not
on a bad
usually.
day.
Usually 2.
Okay.
Yeah, usually 2. I don't usually have 3 cups of coffee.
So that's 480
See?
milligrams.
That's not even that much.
That's so much.
No.
That's over double what they recommend we consume.
Who's we? I'm not pregnant.
Well, that's the other thing too, is like part of what I've, like what I'm gathering is if it's not good, for the baby's development, it's likely not great for us either.
I mean, the thing you really got to think about though is like the first cup is just cup 0. That's just like hitting your baseline. So that doesn't even count. That's like not even on there. So I'm really only having like 1 cup of coffee a day.
If you have 3 of those, what is that? 6 times 120, which is 6, 720. Wait, my math is wrong.
3 times 120?
6 times 120.
Oh, 6.
There's 2. Yeah, 720. I was right.
Yeah. I'm not even hitting 1,000. That's not even. And I usually don't even get to 3. Usually it's only 2 a day.
Great.
Not past noon.
See what happens if you cut it to 1.5 on a regular, and then 2 is on the days that you really need it. 1.5 of those little tumblers, and see if your REM sleep improves. And if it doesn't, I'll go.
I would like to quote someone by saying that you're cutting out about 80% of the joy in my life if you cut out all my coffee.
If I cut out all your coffees, really? Okay, I'm cutting out 1/4 of 80% is 20%. So I'm really only cutting out 20% of your joy.
Heidi's trying to kill 20% of my joy in life.
Yes. Anyways, well, shout out. But just throwing out some ideas, some solutions.
There we go.
And all we can do is try and see what happens. And you're just scared that it's going to work. And then you're only going to get 1.5 cups of coffee.
The running joke is for a while, like there have been times, and I do this, like if my coffee consumption gets way too much, I'll like cut it off for like a week. I'll like kind of reset. But then I usually like for habit's sake, I have something. So I'll have like tea.
Yeah.
And Lindsay jokes around. She's like, we are not a tea family, so you need to stop this nonsense right now.
I love tea. I'm ready to get back on my tea train. So many different teas like you're not allowed to have.
Well, yeah, because some of them even contain caffeine in there too. So I was like, this isn't helping me. So
it's less caffeine though, overall. Anyways, well, okay, good catch up. I figured we'd have something to blather on about before we get to today's topic, even though we caught up yesterday.
Yeah. Shocking how that happens.
Shocking. Well, I'm really excited for today's topic because I think it is how do I put this? It is a topic that I think just like needs to be brought to light, but I think will spark an interesting discussion, but also even in how we go about describing things. Like I think we need to be cognizant about how we're talking about certain foods and different things. But ultimately what I'm excited to dive into today is basically how labeling foods as good or bad, right, has an effect not only on how you view the foods that you're consuming and has an effect on your relationship with foods and the foods that you're choosing. But then also on the flip side of that, how food labeling as good or bad or healthy or unhealthy can really influence purchasing decisions, because then on top of that, like companies have utilized those marketing techniques and those labels to help promote their products, and often are hiding less nutrient dense products behind labels like healthier or whatever, some fancy marketing term, that actually aren't necessarily a healthier option, or even, something that could be labeled as quote unquote healthy. But anyway, so we just wanted to get into the discussion of the like food marketing, food labeling, but also utilize it as a proponent to help you move away from labeling your foods as good or bad or cheat or healthy or this or that, so that you can just make informed decisions based on how your body feels, instead of, falling victim to the food marketing that is rampant in our grocery stores.
Yeah, and I think when we kind of brought this up, I think coming from a place where everyone understands, or that we try to preach, that all foods can fit within like a healthy lifestyle and like within your lifestyle. Because I think one thing that a lot of people do is focus on restriction, and then we don't really make like the sustained changes we want when we're trying to, I don't know what term you want to use for it, clean up, get a healthier lifestyle, add those fruits and vegetables, do those type of things. And it's not that we ever want to label things healthy, unhealthy, good or bad, because that can create not great relationships with food. And that's not something that long-term will help you make any changes, is if you have a dysfunctional relationship with food. But the idea or the concept that this is in marketing, healthier versions of food, not like those type of things. And if you're not aware of it, it can kind of trick you into thinking you're making bigger changes than you are. Or it also be like disempowering, where you're buying these quote unquote healthier versions of food, or a healthy food you saw in the store, and you're trying to associate that change with other things you're trying to do in your life and make a positive impact, and you're not seeing it. And that's not necessarily 100% your fault, because you haven't lived the life. You don't pay attention to those nuances like, someone like myself would, like just trying to look at what those actually look like. But also that it's also a ploy to get you to buy stuff. And so if they can trick you into thinking it's a healthier alternative and you're going to start buying that, then that's their ultimate goal, is to get you to buy the product. And they're going to use those buzzwords a lot to try to, especially if you're making a positive change, to try to do those things, and how some of them might be beneficial and some of them, not that we want to say healthy, unhealthy, but this quote unquote healthy food might not be doing what you think it's going to be doing.
Yeah, I think what a lot of it comes down to is, bringing things back to the relationship with food, and having these established food labels that have been, ingrained. I often use the example of like, an apple is good and a cookie is bad, when in reality, like, both have a wonderful seat at our table, right? And I think it's interesting, saying that a cookie is a part of a well-rounded, well-balanced diet. I think a lot of people are like, oh, you're telling me to, eat a bunch of cookies. Oh my gosh. It's like, no, if all I ate was cookies all day, I would feel like shit. But on the flip side of that, if all I ate were apples all day, I would feel like shit too, So it has to go beyond that. And we have to look at where these things are fitting into our overall life and learning how to fuel our bodies appropriately. And when we can do that without the label of good, bad, cheat, treat, this, that, the other, right? We're opening the door to creating a better relationship with those maybe more calorically dense foods that are less nutriently dense, so that they're less taboo, less desirable, because those are the patterns that we often see when we're living in a world where we have labeled these foods as good or bad, right? We start to establish those relationships of, oh, I can't keep that in the house, because if it's in the house, then I'm just going to go hog wild on it. Right. That is literally the definition of a binge, right? On that particular food. And we go through these restrict and binge cycles so that we don't allow these foods around us. And then once they are around us, we can't, control ourselves around these highly palatable foods. Whereas if they are incorporated or just like readily available to us, we get to make choices, right, for ourselves that put how we feel at the forefront instead of just what tastes good in the moment. And there's a way to combine those two things in a way that, helps you feel your best, but has nothing to do with how society views that food item.
Right. And I think one of the things that kind of brought this to light was, it kind of made me laugh, was I think it was for Christmas. I got a protein Snicker bar.
Ooh.
So like the company that makes Snickers, like Candy Bar, made a protein enhanced version of their bar, right? And so my understanding was like, okay, this is probably like, and I tried it, and it's like, I laugh at some of those because they're always like, very few like deliver on the, like the flavor you're hoping that it was. Like you're just hoping it tastes like a Snickers bar that is just like, hey, there's some extra protein in here. Not the case.
Hoping that your protein shake tastes like a milkshake.
Yeah, it's not happening. That doesn't mean that it's not like I don't still enjoy them. It's just like it usually falls a little bit short.
Sure.
But I was thinking a lot about that because when we talk to our listeners, I was like, it could be very much so misconstrued that if Snickers bars are one of your favorite things and you like to put them in your weekly routine as far as you're eating, that like, okay, this is a quote unquote healthier version of Snickers because it's got extra protein. I'm not going to be someone who scoffs at protein. I want everyone to eat more protein than they already do. So great on you. But understanding that is still really, really close to a candy bar. Yeah. And so like those things are what we just want to talk to, like, kind of bring to light because it's a marketing ploy to get you to buy it. But at the same time, I don't think we would, necessarily say if you have specific goals or you're trying to do different things that we could incorporate that, but don't think that like, oh, I can have one of these every day because it's quote unquote got protein. And that, I'm making the healthy choice by doing those type of behaviors.
Yeah. Yeah. And we use the example of, there's all of these food labels, like, up and down the aisles, lower fat, lower sugar, keto friendly, what else? Gluten-free, which that has some merit.
Sure.
For those with celiac disease, having food labels like that can be helpful. But in that, you can't slap a fancy food label on a banana.
Yeah.
There's not a fancy commercial for broccoli.
I mean, I wish there was. That would be awesome.
What's so funny? This is totally unrelated, but I to this day cannot spell broccoli without singing. I think it was was it a Sesame Street song or the Muppets or something? They had a song, maybe it was Veggie Tales. Broccoli. I am the broccoli and don't know why. Anyways,
there we go.
I can't spell broccoli without singing that song. It's like saying the ABCs. It just feels wrong. You have to sing it every time I write the word broccoli.
I don't remember that one, but that's it's funny how those little things get stuck. Yeah. Now I'll start singing broccoli.
See what a world we would live in if broccoli had a commercial and that was the jingle.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone would be eating more broccoli.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where we're not sitting here saying like you can only eat whole foods, right, in order to be quote unquote healthy. But when we can separate out these food labels that we have created or that society has created for us, right, we start to deepen our relationship with food, and we can look at how does this food make me feel, right? And that goes with how it makes our body feel, but then like also emotionally. We talk about that alien eating activity all the time. And, like my husband was just talking about this. So cereal has been another one of my pregnancy cravings.
I miss cereal.
Like I couldn't tell you the last time I had bought a box of cereal, which is so funny. Probably in college, like honestly. I never bought cereal, but it's so funny because like I grew up eating cereal,
we all did.
That's like what I would eat for breakfast. And like that has been a big pregnancy craving. And so, I bought like a box of Life, and then I bought a box of, what did I buy? Oh, like mini wheats. And then one day I got hog wild and bought a box of Cocoa Puffs. And I was just like, this sounds so good.
Just got to put bananas in there.
Yeah. And so I bought this box of Cocoa Puffs, and my husband opened the pantry and he was like, oh my God, you bought Cocoa Puffs? He's like, this is the best day of my life. He's like, this is something that like we would get like on our birthdays. Like they never like ate the, like Lucky Charms, Cocoa Puffs, like those kind of cereals, Captain Crunch, like that kind of stuff. And my house was very similar to that. Like we had Cheerios and we had Life and we had Honey Bunches of Oats and Special K and all this stuff. But like, Lucky Charms or Cocoa Puffs or any like Cinnamon Toast Crunch, like that was all special occasion cereal almost. And my husband was sitting there eating it, and I was like, is it everything you ever dreamed of? Because it was just like this thing that was so sought after for him. And he was eating it, and he was like, I mean, it's good, but it's not like he's like, it's not like I wouldn't go to the ends of the earth for it. I wouldn't. And literally that was the only bowl that he had of the entire box that we bought. He was just like, it's good. Yeah. And it's like so interesting how these labels that we, have like placed around food can influence our desire for them, right? And then you on top of that slap on the fancy marketing. I almost said the farketing.
The farketing.
The fancy marketing tactics, and you have your heightened desire because of these societal food labels, plus the marketing tactic food labels that are then also enhancing your desire because it makes us perceive that we're making a quote unquote healthy choice, when in reality it can fit, but if we view it for what it is at its base level, and even more importantly how it feels when you consume it, and make our decisions based on that, you're going to feel a lot more freedom in that space when it comes to making food decisions. You're going to feel a lot more clarity, a lot less bogged down, a lot less like paralysis by analysis with all of the noise that's happening in the food space, right? Because there's a lot of different arguments out there. Like I can scroll through Instagram and see like, butter is bad. And then the next reel is a lady like literally chomping down on a stick of butter. And then the next video is, carbs are bad. And then the next video is carbs are okay if blank. And then like there's so much, and I can understand like how frustrating and overwhelming and annoying that is, especially if we are coming at it with good intentions, right? To improve our health. It can feel so defeating to be constantly met with, conflicting information. And that's, I often talk about going on like somewhat of an information diet.
Sure.
Like, if there's one diet that I'm a proponent of, sometimes it's an informational one because it allows you to quit taking in all of the inputs and really just focus on you and how you feel and make decisions based on that versus what everybody else is saying.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And like I was thinking when you were going through, I mean, some of these foods, and I never want to display convenience and the need to like, sometimes we need to put these things in like, I always just go back to, I don't know why, like the bars, like they always like keep coming back to me as where it's like,
well, we were literally just talking about it. I'm looking at the label of my protein bar. So not to interrupt you, Tyler, but I came downstairs to record this. And for whatever reason, like normally I could record this podcast and then go, like eat breakfast. But like certain mornings, for whatever reason, I haven't figured out what is leading to it. I wake up and it is like, if I don't eat in the next 20 minutes, like I will pass away.
yeah, I will usually die of starvation.
And so I was in a rush and just grabbed, a protein bar from the cupboard and came downstairs to record. And we were talking about this, right? Like for any intensive purposes, right? Like somebody would see this on the shelf and just think like, oh, I'm going to eat this bar. There was also, I'm pretty sure, a diet that revolved around these bars.
I'm sure pretty close.
But like, I'm not sitting here thinking that this is the best choice I could have made for breakfast,
Sure.
right? But it was like a convenience. I needed to put protein in my belly.
Right.
ASAP, right? And it only has 14 grams of protein. So like not even the most protein packed bar out there on the market. Right. But it was funny. I have another bar that I like a lot more, that has a lot less added sugar and like overall like a shorter ingredient list, but it only has 11 grams of protein, which is interesting. Anyways, not that we are sitting here like counting macros or splitting hairs that much, but so for all intents and purposes, you could look at this and be like, oh, a quote unquote health food, right?
Mm-hmm.
Flip it around. Only 2 grams of fiber. Sad.
So yeah, not great.
And 16 grams of added sugar.
Yeah.
I wish I could go upstairs. Sam got me my favorite Twix bar for, I probably can just look it up. For Valentine's Day. I wonder how many grams of added sugar is in a Twix bar.
Yeah, because I mean, like those are things like it's a convenient thing, which is good, but also understanding that like,
we cannot base our entire day around it either.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, that's where decoupling, like I'm not sitting here thinking when I grab this bar, I'm making a quote unquote healthy choice.
Right.
I'm grabbing this bar because I need something in my stomach right now,
Yeah. And I don't want to like, don't beat yourself up either. If you're like, I made that choice, or it was like a king size candy bars. And like, that's probably, you know what I mean? Those small adjustments like it can pay dividends because you start to learn to make those adjustments. But thinking that I'm making this choice, and if I keep making this choice, this bar will be this one shining bar up above all others that'll help my health get realigned is kind of unrealistic, but that's what they want to paint it as.
Yeah, it reminds me of like the Special K diet. Like thinking back on the diet that surrounded this, you were supposed to, I think, replace 2 of your meals with this.
Uh-huh.
And then have 1 meal at night. Similar to like Slim Fast, which I think did that as well. They would have bars and then like a shake, and then you could like eat dinner, I think is how they would do it. But then it also reminds me of like the Special K diet. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It was like eat Special K for breakfast and lunch and then have dinner. And it's like all we're doing is caloric restriction because there's only 220 calories in here, you know?
Yeah.
Like, so if I eat, like, I was eating this as like a warm up to my day. I'm still going to go eat my eggs later.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know what
exactly.
I mean? Like, 220 calories is not going to get me very far. And then by the end of lunch, you've only consumed 440 calories plus maybe like a piece of fruit. So maybe at best by the end of lunch, you've had 500 calories.
That's not a lot of calories.
So then let's say you have, a 700 calorie dinner and you're at 1,200 calories. And then that's my freaking beef on top of all of my beefs. This one probably lands on the top, and it's the recommendation that women should eat 1,200 calories per day.
Yeah, I don't think that's
insane.
That's not
Medical professionals are suggesting that to their patients. I have family members who sat in the doctor's office, and that was the actual recommendation out of the doctor's mouth.
I think we should talk to some of these doctors. I would love to know the scientific basis for why this is a good idea.
Insanity. Anyways, so that's a totally different episode.
Sure.
But, right, so like, we're not sitting here saying that you should fear the amount of sugar in a protein bar. We're not saying that you should, oh, by the way, I looked it up. There's 23 grams of sugar in a king-size Twix bar. So only 7 more grams than this protein bar.
Yeah. And that's just to illustrate the point that like, it's not that like we're,
label,
yeah,
right?
It's just the label. Like it's just, and so like, please don't take this episode and start turning around every label and looking at it.
Right. Or getting like hyper specific or anything. If anything, this episode should do the opposite.
Yeah.
Right. Think about how you feel when you're consuming foods instead of basing your decisions off of the perception of the food.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get down to what is this food doing for me, right? We talk a lot about, what do proteins do for you? What do carbohydrates do for you? Right? What does fiber do for you? What does fat do for you in terms of these macronutrients? Familiarize yourself with where am I getting these macronutrients throughout the day? And then, one thing that we could do here in that kind of like add versus subtract thing, we could pair this bar with a piece of fruit and get a lot more fiber.
Sure.
Right. And I would feel fuller longer. I would still get 14 grams of protein. And maybe this bar would take me, it would get me further into my day than just eating this bar alone. Right. So like those are the types of discussions we need to have versus the label on the food itself and how it's being presented to the public.
Yeah. And I think the other big thing that you brought up is just the reflection of after we have it. I think back to like what Sam was saying is like, usually we crave something. And if we're honest with ourselves more times than not, there are times that it just smacks. It's beautiful and it's great. And then there are times like I'll order stuff in the restaurant because it sounds amazing and I'll eat it. And I was like, yeah, that didn't do for me what I thought it was. And then later, like I'll be doing stuff and I'll be like, I feel groggy, my digestion's all off. And then that's where I've really tried to just take a little bit of time. It doesn't take a lot just to reflect on like that, like that choice can be there for me. But I keep those things in mind because I'm like, okay, has it been a long time since I've had this food? Am I really craving it? And if if it's not, all these checks aren't coming off, I'll be like, I'll make a different decision because it's just, I don't want to feel that way. And I'm making that association with how I feel with the food, not this intense craving or something like that.
Yeah, totally. Well, I feel like we could talk about this all day long. Should we head into the sauna and wrap it up?
Let's do the sauna.
Welcome, everyone. It's time to head to sauna. Let's dive in.
Let's go. All right. Takeaways from the episode. And I think we touched on this already. I don't want people walking away from this episode thinking about, foods as good or bad. I don't want you to, I don't think being ignorant about what's going in your mouth either is, necessarily the answer. But we also need to know ourselves and know that, if I start scouring food labels, is that going to kind of snowball into something that's ultimately not beneficial for us. But also know yourself and knowing that there's 14 grams of protein or 16 grams of added sugar in something, again, it's just data, right? And if we can just look at it as data and remove the judgment from it, and allow that to be data that provides us information to make choices that make us feel good, then by all means, right? But also keeping in mind that the more we allow societal food labels to dictate our actions when it comes to fueling our bodies, or just, food labels in general, the more susceptible we are to quote unquote healthy marketing ploys that are presenting you with foods that ultimately, may or may not be the most, nutriently dense or even like the most satisfying option for you. There could be a more satisfying option that doesn't have a fancy food label on it, that tastes better and, gives your body what it needs, like broccoli.
Yeah. Well, and I think I'm right along with you where it's like, we just wanted to open your eyes a little bit. And here's what I think, like, you should not obsess over this ever. Like, this should not be, because it's not a healthy place to live. Like, and I've worked with a lot of people who have done stuff like that. But what I want to say is, like, if it's just an educational eye opener, if there's a bar that you like particularly like, or you think it's healthy, like, it's not a bad idea to grab it and look at the back, grab a candy bar, look at the back, and just educate yourself and be like, okay, if I get this, you know what I mean? Like, this is pretty close to this. So I just need to know that like these two things are similar. They might fill similar gaps for me. They may not, but like educate, like you said, not being ignorant to the sales structures and what is going on is only going to help you make better decisions that are good for you. And I can't tell you exactly what those are, but I could tell you, just the more that you educate yourself and understand this, the better options you can actually make for yourself.
Totally. Like, this is giving me a content idea. It'd be so interesting to like put this bar on the plate, and not as a way to shame the bar, but just to like, again, like bring awareness to how we perceive food, and be like, a lot of people would see me eating this for breakfast and not like bat an eye at it, right? But if I had to scramble the eggs in a Twix bar for breakfast, which would be roughly, what is that, like 12 grams of protein plus the 2 that's in a Twix bar. So 14, same amount of protein, and like not very far off in terms of added sugar and fiber and all of that stuff. But like if somebody, saw me munching down a Twix bar for breakfast, like I'd get some judgmental eyebrow raises. You know what I mean? So I think that just like paints the picture, like the juxtaposition of how we perceive food, when in reality, like when you peel the curtain back, right? Like the differences there are very minimal.
Sure.
And so anyways, that would be very interesting. Uh, Anyways, fun content idea, but like that should like stick in your brain, right? Like that concept of if you saw somebody walking down the street hammering a protein bar for breakfast versus if you saw somebody eating a Twix bar for breakfast, right? Like you would have feelings about that, right?
Sure.
Like your perception of that. But then like again, peeling the curtain back and we're actually looking at like the nuts and bolts behind it. So again, like allowing your body to be the decision maker versus your perception being the decision maker.
Absolutely.
Interesting. So fun. All right. You have some trivia for me today?
I do. We have today's Valentine's Day. We got some questions about the topic of love. Love.
Oh boy.
It's in the air today. So what are the 3 components of love? According to some random webpage that is, I'm sure, very science-based.
Connection.
Negative.
Emotion. I don't know.
First one is attraction.
Oh,
so we're talking the very part. Okay. Second one is lust.
Oh.
Which is like at the beginning of the relationship, you can kind of understand that. And then the third one is attachment.
Attachment. Interesting.
Interesting, isn't it?
Attachment, connection. Sure. Half point.
You can fall in love with someone scientifically in less than what amount of time?
7 seconds.
4 minutes.
Oh, wow.
I think you should probably base a lot more of your decision after that than the first initial 4 minutes.
Yes. Did you fall in love with Lindsay in 4 minutes?
I don't think so, no. I don't think that was a 4-minute decision.
Me either.
I mean, since we were together 7 years before we got engaged, yeah, it took me...
Same.
Yeah, exactly. It took a little bit longer. But we were in high school, so it was like, yeah.
We were kids.
Opposites attract. Myth or not a myth?
I'm gonna say not a myth. Sam and I are not opposites, and it works very well to be very similar in a lot of ways. But I've also seen relationships where opposites work very well.
It is not a myth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another fun fact is having different interests and hobbies as individuals can help couples be more spontaneous and have a loving, lasting relationship.
Nice. I mean, yeah, we have our separate things, but I would say like personality wise, we have a lot of similarities.
Okay.
But I've also seen couples that are very different have very successful relationships.
2 more. This is interesting. Attraction, so an aspect of love, has an unhealthy attribute, can have an unhealthy attribute to it. Do you think you know what it is? Like it can lead to an unhealthy place, which would be called
attachment.
Obsession.
Yeah,
the body releases hormones that give you chemical highs, and people can be so attracted that they like actively go after that high by obsessing over the traits or like some aspect of an individual where it becomes obsession, and they like their brain actually craves that chemical and they like keep going back to it over and over and over again.
It's like that lady. Did you read that article about that gal who just got arrested for stalking this guy after the first date?
No.
She like called him, it was like 190 times or something like that.
190 times?
Like after the first date, and then he was out of town and she sent him a video of her in his bathtub. And he was like, I never gave her my address. And I was like, that's a horror movie.
That's
Anyways,
how
I would venture a
bad things
guess
happen.
that her brain chemicals got a little skewed and got a little obsessive.
a large portion of our you'll like this. This is right in line for the last one. Of our love ideations comes from where?
Movies.
Yep, 100%.
Yep.
They
Isn't that-
quote unquote give us the example of perfect love and idealistic expectations of what we should feel and or experience when we fall in love. Which I know is what you and Sam have every single day, where you accidentally bump into each other somewhere and then end up falling in love later.
We have a meet cute every day.
Yeah.
I drop my books. He helps me pick them up.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's how every rom-com is ever. There's like a little clip of them like falling, like running into each other or having that little thing, and then like, oh, they fall in love. And it was like 30 movies.
I drop my books. He helps me pick them up. I slowly take my glasses off.
And all of a sudden it's like, what
Every
happened?
day.
Every day.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Every single day. Comes home from work. And it happens.
It happens. Awesome. So proud of you guys.
Thank you. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's episode. And we will see you next week.
Thanks for listening. See you next week.